You are now listening to the podcast for geeks and the stuff they love, where each week we'll talk about everything from anime to movies, games, and prop collecting with the people who create and love it. I'm Jeremy.
I'm India.
And I'm Martin.
And this is your Geek Fix. So this week, I'm joined by India Barnardo and Martyn Smith, right? Did I get everybody's names
correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
All
Smith
right.
is a particularly difficult one to get, so
it is. It's a hard one. Not a lot of people with that name,
No.
so
It's
you
very
got to
special.
try and keep it straight. Now I know India. You work for Sony doing animation.
I do, Martin.
Yeah, I'm doing. I'm working in games at the moment. So
Oh, okay. So who do you work for right now, Martin?
there's a company that didn't start that long ago. They're called Superseed Studios, and essentially what they do is they do outsourcing work to various studios that need like help on productions on different shows. So over the course of the last 2 years, I've probably worked on maybe 20 or 30 different games. Maybe that might be an over estimate, but definitely a lot. So it's kind of like these companies, in some cases they just don't have the facilities to do these things. In other cases it's like, help, we need somebody to come in and sort these things out. So yeah.
Do you actually go in, or are you doing everything remote?
Everything's remote. Yeah. The
Is
company's actually based in Southern California. So we're in Vancouver, BC. So yeah. It's good.
Hence the accents, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. This is the most
the strong Canadian accents.
Yeah.
British Columbia.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's true. That is a good spin on it.
We are very much in the process of applying for our Canadian citizenship. So we need to get practicing and be.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Excellent. And then just slowly take over the continent, but you then come to the U.S. and do the same.
Yeah, we're taking it back.
It's perfect.
That's the way to go.
Yeah, we don't like ours anymore, so this is the next. This is the.
Yeah. One step at a time. That's the best way to do it.
Exactly.
Now you've been involved in some games though that we know. Actually, both of you have. But I mean, tell us some of the games that you guys have been involved in, the things that you've done.
Well, the first one we did was Oddworld, with Superseed, in fact. The Soulstorm.
A little known game.
Yes. And it was when that came up, I was just like, what a neat opportunity. It was a few months before the pandemic hit. And it was a really interesting project to be a part of. Lots of freedom, I guess, to input your take on the acting with those sort of characters that are, legendary.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
The games themselves are based on other games that have been around for 20 plus years, or 30 plus, actually. I know for at least one of them. So you're getting to give input on a new take on something that's really pretty well established.
Well, the interesting thing about the Oddworld project is that there had been like remakes of them, but I don't think there'd been a canonical entry into the franchise for the better part of 15 or so years, maybe longer. So the older versions were, although there was a very clear vision about them and there was a charm to them. The way the presentation was definitely was something that was maybe of the past, of like that we'd moved on from. So a lot of it was kind of like rediscovering how these things behave and how they act and how they move around, and so that was fun. Like a lot of the characters like basically got reimagined in a way.
Yeah, and discovering their anatomy.
The first game. So the first game was Abe's Oddworld, wasn't it?
I think
it was.
Yeah.
So that didn't follow any of the rules of the games for that system at the time. And it actually broke grounds, and they had to come up with inventive new ways for being able to create video sections, and then also new ways to do two-dimensional animated / whatever to be able to create this kind of very different game for the time.
Well, there was also something about it. I remember it coming out, and I didn't play it at the time. I do remember playing. There was a few other games that were similar. I think similar to it. There was Another World, and then there was I almost want to put Prince of Persia into that same collection, but I think that's really more of a slightly advanced platformer.
Yeah.
But that kind of narrative first, character driven, but still like there's a game. It's not just full motion video and cutscenes. And
right.
You're still moving through this story arc, and I think Lorne Lanning, the guy that basically created the Oddworld franchise, who we were dealing with directly, was always keen for it to be. His vision was he wanted this to be like almost told like a movie. Like these are stories. They are we're not here just making a video game. We want to make something that's kind of captivating and narratively interesting. And I think that for the most part they really were successful in that. Which
yeah.
says a lot.
Yeah. Well, and the other game that you guys were involved in that I know of also has a little bit of a storyline to it, and also is based on a retro. I think I can call it retro at this point in time. We can call the games that for me back then were like, wow, this is new because I was born in the 70s. So, but at the same time, tell me about some of the other things you guys have been involved in.
Yeah, well, we did Crash Bandicoot, It's About Time, and we weren't on the project very long. We were actually towards the end, and we were a little team. But it was really cool just being able to be a part of that franchise just a little bit. Like, it was one of my favorites as a child, and my brothers were all obsessed with it as well.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things where it was deadly secret, top secret. And we couldn't tell at all. And that was really hard because I just knew how much my brothers was want to know. So, keeping that a secret was pretty tricky.
Those NDAs are hard. It's like living in working in a top secret facility.
Yeah.
There should be a bunch of doors with passwords and elevators that go down underground, things like that. Yeah, that is hard though. But at least between the two of you, you gotta be able to talk about some of these things, right?
Yeah, that did help.
Yeah. And we were on the projects with a few friends as well, so we kind of we weren't totally cut off from that one, but. Yeah, it was like I never had a PlayStation, so I was living vicariously through India, so I didn't have the same level of like emotional attachment to it. But it does feel like something like that has a place in history, like they've become so important to so many people that you want to kind of treat them with some care and respect.
It can be dangerous almost sometimes because you have people that care so deeply about something and it has to be a certain way. That's a hard line to tread. Make it something new and vitalized for the current generations, but at the same time not offend anyone. That's
I think that's a problem that you'll find with so many, especially for movies, but any like reimagining of a I hate to use the word franchise. We feel so personally invested in these things that we if we're given something a new take on it, if that new take isn't so utterly wonderfully realized, it gets picked apart so quickly. But then at the same time, it's very expensive and very time consuming to come up with something new. Well, in theory, and so I understand why studios will quite often lean on existing things, and I do wish there were more new things. But at the same time, I think when you go back to something that had been created in the past, I understand the need to be respectful of that and to kind of bring it to life in a way. I think that's one of the reasons actually that maybe the Marvel franchises are so successful. Maybe not necessarily for me, but I understand for why they are for a lot of people, is that they have this predefined universe, but then because the characters are all so different in it, they can have different stories within that universe. It's not like you have your spy thriller and then you have your action movies and then you have your more that's probably most of them actually, but then there's but the way the characters behave in that can be starkly different. And I think stark that wasn't an intended pun, but I'll take it. But yeah, so yeah, long story short, I think it's fun to be involved in these kind of these reimaginings of things. But there is definitely you are definitely aware that you want to do right by people.
Yeah. I mean, Martin also did worked on some Matrix stuff that was.
Yeah, we did.
You did?
We just. I was helping out for a good 6 months, last year on a Epic Games their Unreal Engine. They have the proprietary software that they use for game development and is now used in TV and film a lot. Whenever they release a new version of it, they create a kind of a demo that's like, hey, look what we can do. Look how cool our software is.
Oh, I gotta see that.
And then
you were involved in that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so they did.
That's very cool.
They did basically a vignette that's essentially set in the original Matrix, but it's a chase sequence through a city, and then there's characters like firing off you get to control a character firing at agents on cars and helicopters, and then it cuts to a huge sprawling open world that's in the Matrix engine, in the Unreal Engine. Matrix, I mean, probably
it's
the same thing. But I was helping out. There are some cutscenes in there, so there's some cinematically driven kind of locked cameras that are doing their thing that you're not controlling. So I did some work on a lot.
Yeah, they did some like what was it? The sort of Keanu Reeves CG and non-CG Keanu Reeves stuff in there as well.
Yeah, Carrie-Anne Moss and Keanu Reeves came in and did a lot of motion capture and a lot of
like actual
stuff.
mocap suits, or do you guys do? How do you do that?
Yeah, for that it was mocap suits, and what you generally tend to find is that some of it is fantastic, and some of it is like so far from what is necessary, and that's not really anybody's fault, and that's not the technology's fault. That's usually because the choices have changed, they've evolved,
right?
And so that's where we come in usually, where we're kind of like changing the choices and bringing in new animation and also cleaning up the mocap data is never perfectly clean, at least not yet, but it will be one day, I'm sure.
Yeah. I've known a lot of people who do a lot of effects and games, and usually most of their experience has been you do all the motion capture and then you just throw that away, and then you just animate it yourself.
Yeah, I've definitely been on projects like that.
We had some friends who were working for Weta in New Zealand.
Oh, awesome.
They were working on, I think, the first Planet of the Apes movie, and there's Andy Serkis was a big part of that movie and had a lot of kind of a lot of sway in the performance capture and stuff like that, and they did base a lot of the performance on what he did, but from what I understand, it was basically like, okay, that's cool, but it doesn't quite work, so let's throw it all away and we'll do it from scratch.
Mostly probably his face capture is what is probably the most helpful
it's really really good reference. That's what it is, and we both record reference a good amount when we're animating. Like you there's only so much you can guess, and before you really should be kind of using something that's grounded in reality. And so what was probably good is that you've got something to launch from. So
Andy Serkis is kind of the king of mocap, and tied to Weta, actually going back way back to Gollum and all that stuff. So what else have you guys been involved in? What else have you been doing lately? I left the sort of freelancing stuff and started at Sony about a year and a half ago now, maybe. And so for that first year or so, maybe, I can't remember how long it was, I think a year, I was working on a Netflix feature, if I can say that. It's called The Sea Beast, and it's coming out in July. This is the one you couldn't tell me about before.
Yes,
it is. Okay.
I was going to say that,
very
last time
cool.
I spoke to Yeah. So I'm super excited to see what people think about that. It looks pretty epic. There's some trailers and bits out now, some images and things. But yeah, so that took me up to November. I'm now on another feature, but that one is unannounced, so I can't talk about that one. But yeah, at least I have something to talk about.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that. Well, I know you're also doing, or are you still doing your Twitch stream stuff too, or is live animating and drawing and? Yeah, I haven't been doing that since we hit crunch at the end of last year, and then I basically took some time off work to go, after
a long time, being able to see family finally and all that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah.
And then we also moved house, so it's been a bit of a crazy. Like the last 6-7 months has been a bit intense. So I haven't gone back to
I was going to say
yet,
your place looks different.
Yes, we moved. Yeah, we got a bit more space and stuff. And I've been sort of brewing on stuff to work on, whether that's Twitch or some capacity online. But it's in the works.
Well, yeah, that's pretty cool. You need side stuff. You both have side things you do, things you enjoy doing on the side.
I mean, I think one of the interesting things that we both discovered over the pandemic is that we love animating, and I'm not gonna undermine the position we're in. We're very fortunate to be able to do the job we do. But there's something about working in a studio environment where you can have an impact on your shot, and you can have an impact on maybe a small impact on the film, and it's very exciting to be a part of that. But there is a point where you kind of want to be able to exclusively drive the process yourself, where you want to have control over character choices and narrative arcs and bigger picture things and smaller picture things. And so both of us, I think, have been exploring. Like I've been sort of developing my first novel over the last few months, and looking at India's already directed a flipping short film, so she's ahead of me on that one. But there's an itch that I think you find after working in the industry for long enough, where you're like, I kind of would like to make my own thing, and that's definitely something we're both exploring.
Oh, that's cool. Very cool. Yeah, this is kind of my side thing. Naturally, but an opportunity to connect, especially where I live. There's not a lot of people around that are interested in some of the things I'm interested in. So this is about the best way that I can do that. So
this is a difficult thing. This really is. It's hard to even us. You think we're directly connected to people who are doing similar things to us every day, but we still talk about how we'd like a larger group of people that we can bounce ideas off and
building that community.
Community is great. India, you actually helped set up a club this is back in the UK, but I mean that's still going, isn't it? By other people doing it out there, or no?
There's similar ones. So I did one that was called Anim Gather.
Yeah,
and I'd love to at some point resurrect that somehow, but basically I organised a seasonal sort of get together. It would sort of be spring and winter, excuse me, and we would just meet up, depending on the weather, in a park or in a pub. It was just a place for people to hang out. There was already one that actually where me and Martin met that you would go to, and that one is still going, and you basically take your show reel or your animation or whatever you have.
Right. And
there's experts that will be at the pub, and you can show your work to them, and you can buy them a pint to say thank you. And it's really cool. And I think that's still going. There's a couple of new ones as well, linked to that through, I think it's ACM SIGGRAPH. Anim Gather was really fun. Ours was, I guess, less formal in that
you didn't have to be an animator to be a part of that one.
No, the tagline was not just for animators. The idea was to try and get more of the industry to just hang out, different departments and stuff. And I just wanted a place for people to go, and if they want to talk shop, they can, but they don't have to, because all the other meetups I found were more about, getting a job or showing your work and that sort of thing.
Right.
So it was more of a networking, just hanging out, having a bit of fun. And actually, the connections, that was a long time ago now, but those connections still exist. We see people working together that met at those meetups. We had jobs through people we met through those meetups.
The first job that we had when we came over to Vancouver was on a film called The Willoughbys, and we got that job through a friend who we met at Anim Gather.
Oh, really?
So,
see?
So it's really nice to see, the other day even we saw some people working at a studio, I think in Montreal, and we're like, hey, they met at Anim Gather. That's kind of cool that, they're now working together. And so it's nice to see that what that can, what building a community space for people can lead to. So there's something in my head at the moment of like trying to work out what that means and what it means in this sort of new remote world.
Yeah,
India's always had an obsession, or at least for a good amount of time, of opening a community like a cafe, but it's a cafe that's driven towards artists and maybe digital art and all sorts. And there are definitely examples of it in the world, but I think that actually like a space where people can come together and collaborate and, hey, you want to work on my project? We've got this thing happening. There's this thing.
Surprisingly, in my little tiny town, we have one of those. They call it the art bar. That's what they call it. I
already love it. I want to
go. My son, India recommended doing. Yeah, it's kind of like the Anim Gather situation. He's been trying to set that up where he is, and he was kind of frustrated because only like one person at a time seems to show. But I said, well, hey, that's still somebody that has a similar interest. That's an opportunity to be able to talk with somebody and hang out with somebody that shares an interest. Yeah.
Yeah, I think however small, it's kind of if you commit to it, I think however small it is, it will start to gain traction as long as you're consistent. And even if that, in the area, okay, there's one or two people, it's like you said, it's still one or two people that have now found a connection with someone else to talk about what they enjoy.
Right.
And, you can always develop that, so maybe it just goes online, like those three people build up that thing and they're like, hey, let's go online and find more people,
right.
Finding support.
So many of the stories that you'll hear from famous game designers and artists and film directors, and engineers, and like any trade really where people are passionate about what they do, you'll always hear so often stories of like, oh yeah, there was a group of us and we'd hang out and we'd talk about movies, or there's a group of us and we'd do game jams and we'd like just come up and there's almost like that vaudevillian kind of people just doing like skits and just doing things over and over again and like connecting those synapses to make like things. Like I was listening to an interview with Quentin Tarantino yesterday, and he was saying that he used to work in a video rental store.
Yeah.
And him and his friends would just spend like the entire day just picking through the archives of this store and watching every single movie in there and critiquing them. And then so he would then write reviews, and before he even considered directing a movie, he was spending years just talking about movies. And so I think there's a lot to be said for that. I think that's a.
Now, Martin, you didn't start out in this business though. You were doing more like architectural stuff, weren't you, or CAD or something? Or
well, I went to university. I was looking around all the different universities because I was like in a certain area of England, because I decided I wanted to be a certain distance away from home, where like I could still probably get home in a couple of hours, but no, not too much further than that. So I picked an area. And there was a handful of universities in there that I probably had the grades that I could have made it into. I wasn't the greatest of students, and there are reasons for that, which we'll get onto. But there was this area that I'd picked, and I went to the universities and had a look around them, and they were pretty good. And then one of the universities I went to, University of Derby, which, funnily enough, is the same county where India's from.
Oh, okay.
She was probably about 13 then, so we didn't know each other. But that's not true. Probably 15.
That's funny.
I went to this university, and I was looking at computing courses. I was looking at various different computer and media courses and anything that was involving technology, because that was the kind of the thing that I was the most interested in or the most excited in, and I kind of got the most. And so I went to this university, and I actually ended up going on the wrong day. So it wasn't the media day; it was the architecture day.
Right.
And I talked to this guy. His name was Boris Ceranik, and he's this like he was also a bouncer in the bars in the town. But he was the architecture and CAD lecturer, and he said, no, today's not the day for that, but we do have this architecture course if you're interested. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, that does sound quite interesting. Maybe I should do that.
Yeah.
So then I spent the next 10 years of my life doing architecture because I went on the wrong day. While I was at university, discovered I was dyslexic, so got the appropriate tutoring, and that changed a lot of my life. Several years later, fast forward, discovered I actually had ADD as well. So these two things combined were incredibly made things incredibly challenging for me to learn in a standard way.
Sure.
I actually had conversations with my mum about this, and she said, do you feel like you were sort of let down, or that you could have that maybe you missed opportunities because of it? And I said no, because I like who I am, and I don't know who I would have been if things would have been different. And I don't feel like I've ever not ended up being in positions and had done the things that I wanted to do. I've still had the right support, but there were certain challenges that really I haven't overcome properly until the last 2-3 years of my life, and I'm 41 now. So these things take a little while. But yeah, so architecture, worked in San Francisco for a period. Realized that I didn't really like architecture. That I think the problem is with it as a profession is that there's a very long lead-in period. You're an apprentice for a long time. Yeah, and rightly so. You're making buildings. You don't want them to fall down. No, but there's definitely a very long period of hey, here is a doorway. We want you to design 600 of them, and we want you to source all the material. And that to me was I think if you're excited by that, then architecture is for you. But for me, it was always I kind of just this isn't very interesting to me, and it was so far away from where I wanted to be. And it dawned on me one day that I can either keep doing this and plow it through it, and maybe I'll be happy, and maybe I won't. There was an uncertainty there. I can go and get a normal person job and just do a 9 to 5 and clock off at the end of the day, or I can do something that I can be actually genuinely excited and passionate about. Right. And I think I'd identified that I enjoyed the sort of the visualization aspect of architecture, using it was Max, 3D Studio Max. Making these renders of environments that the companies were building, fly-throughs and all that sort of thing. But I didn't particularly like the architecture side of it, so thought let's animation seems like it would make sense. So yeah, I think when I was 29, I switched over to animation. Wow. Studied for a couple of years, and then
moved back in with your mum.
Moved back in with my mum.
Yeah. Give her some credit.
That's one of the steps.
It is a very important step. Mum, can I come back home, please? Yeah. And it was I think definitely the best choice I've ever made. I mean,
definitely less redundant.
I mean, I'm so much more passionate and excited by it, and I want to get better, and I still want to grow now. And more importantly, I wouldn't know India without it. So
well, there you go. Yeah,
we have a win-win. Oh, it really. Yeah. I mean, India's been.
Oh no, I was gonna say it's just that's what I found with making the short film is, and I think that's why I've still got the bug for that is. You're making the film, you have an overall goal, but every minute is different because you've got stuff coming out of every direction. And it's really satisfying for that sort of, it's always keeping, if you're stuck on something, there's always something else to get on with. You're never just waiting around. Right. And I've definitely done not very much, but I have been on set and, just in general work day to day, if there's stuff where you're waiting on someone else and there's nothing else you can do, and you're like, okay, I have to think of something. Right. I have to come up with maybe I can start working on this thing that, I'm predicting that hopefully I can have some input.
The frame store days.
Working on set, waiting to hope that someone wants a cup of tea.
There's nothing would worse you like tea? Than being in a position where you have to look busy. There was definitely a point in my life where I would have actively done that, but now I can't. If I'm in a position where I'm there's nothing to do, I am bugging everybody to give me something to do. I'm not sitting here. Either I go home or give me something to do because this is insane. Right. But actually, it's interesting. India was saying about the doing Cat and Moth. I think. I want to say it was maybe during one of our freelance projects, and it was, it's you're on the 300th iteration of a thing, and it's you've gone over and over in it, and like it gets draining, and it gets frustrating because you can't seem to find a solution, and it's the process, and it's nobody's fault. It's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
But then she would go in the evening to do Cat and Moth, and it was like this spark, this energy all of a sudden was running through her, and she's like, oh, I get to do this and that, and,
yeah.
and like, and we talk about it, and we're like, what's the difference there? And we pinpointed the fact that it was the variety. It was that something needed and something needs fixing, something needs making, something needs working on, and then you move on to the next thing, and it's not just one problem 1,000 times.
That brings me to, so in our next episode, I kind of want to ask you a lot about some new things, innovative things that have come along. And I also wanted to get your take on how you think that some things were done that I'm going to try and show you too. So if you enjoy this podcast and want more, well, stay tuned for that. But also check out our channel and join our community on YouTube that goes by the same name, Your Geek Fix. Also check out Martin Smith. Actually, Martin said you've gone underground, basically. Just check out India. Just focus on India. Okay. Or India Barnardo. Where can we check out some of your stuff, India?
We have Cat and Moth on Twitter and Instagram, just as the name is.
Cat and Moth.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just, that's on everything. For me, I'm Indie Pop, so INDI_POPS on Instagram and Twitter again.
Perfect. We'd also love to hear from all of you, or for you to be a part of this podcast as well. So please send your questions and stories to yourgeekfix@gmail.com. In the meantime, this has been Your Geek Fix.